On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, former professional race car driver and longtime Tesla owner and enthusiast Leilani Münter joins me to talk about her fascinating life story as well as her Tesla story. Enjoy. Greetings, friends. Ryan McCaffrey with you alongside my canine companion, Daisy the Boxer. This is episode 314 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast for August 8th, 2021. Well, I'm recording this a little ahead of time. I guess not as you hear this, but as it went this week, I was on vacation with my family, and I knew that I was not going to have an opportunity to do the quote-unquote live podcast during this trip. I hope you'll forgive me taking, 1 or 2 weeks a year. I didn't last year, obviously, because of the pandemic, didn't go anywhere. But just, every now and again, want to disappear with the family, completely unplug from everything. This was one of those weeks. So I wanted, of course, make sure that I had something interesting for you to listen to. And in this case, I hope you'll enjoy this interview coming up with Leilani Münter. She is as I said in the title, a professional race car driver who ran pro races for many years, and she has since become very much an advocate for environmentalism and a lot of the same things that Tesla stands for, and she's a Tesla owner and big-time Tesla enthusiast herself. Now, this interview I want to be completely clear with you, it won't make a difference when you hear it. It's still an interesting conversation. But just so you know, this interview was recorded quite a while ago. And the plan was, well, maybe I'll use it on my next vacation for the exact thing I'm doing now, just to have a new piece of content for you to listen to while I quietly disappear with my family for, take a little break. But that next vacation never came because of the pandemic. This was recorded shortly before the pandemic started. So again, this interview is totally evergreen. It's just about Leilani and her life and her Tesla journey. So I hope you'll enjoy it. Her Tesla story as well is super interesting. Her license plate is probably my favorite personal Tesla license plate that I've seen or heard about yet. But you'll hear about that in the interview. But anyway, I will be back with a regular quote-unquote live episode next week. So here's the Leilani interview. It's about 50 minutes long. And then after that, I'm going to come back and do a few phone calls from the Ride the Lightning hotline. And these are fresh phone calls. So I hope you'll enjoy that. And all told, it'll be hopefully a good hour, just a little bit of a different format than usual. But I hope you'll enjoy it. And with that, stay tuned for Leilani Münter. I am very pleased to be joined this week by a special guest, Leilani Münter. You may know her. She is quite the Tesla presence. She is a former professional race car driver. She is a documentary filmmaker, an activist, a Model S P85 Plus owner, which we'll get into. Leilani, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
So the first thing I've got to start with you, there's a million things to get to talk to you about here, but I always like to know what everyone's Tesla origin story is, because I've told mine here and there on this podcast. Everyone sort of has their own little superhero origin story when it comes to discovering Tesla and how they found it and how it grabbed onto them. So I'm curious about that with you.
Yeah, so I first heard of Tesla when the original Roadster came out, and I can't actually remember, how it came across my radar, but obviously being an environmentalist and being a race car driver, I think I heard about it fairly quickly. And so I had this idea to take the Tesla Roadster and have it on display at my races. And even though I would be driving a race car, a normal race car in the race, that I would have this cool electric car on display. And so a mutual friend introduced me to Elon via email, and we started talking about it. It wasn't actually in my funds back then to be able to do an outreach program along with the racing. I basically had enough sponsorship dollars to race the car, but didn't have enough to do a big education program along with it, which usually about doubles the cost of going to a race. So I wasn't able to pull it off then. But then flash forward a few years, and I was at Daytona in 2012. And the Oceanic Preservation Society was there filming me because I was running a Cove-themed race car. And The Cove is a documentary that won the Academy Award. And I was a big fan, and I crowdfunded to run this Cove car. And at that race, Luis Sahoyas, the director of The Cove and also Racing Extinction, told me, I've got a job for you in the next film. And he didn't tell me what it was, but it was revealed to me later that they wanted me to drive this very cool mobile projection vehicle and kind of be a getaway driver of this car. And when they first showed me the mock-up of the car, it's kind of funny. It was like a van with a projector on the back. But of course, immediately, because the film was raising awareness about the impact of humans on our planet, I said, well, first of all, it has to be an electric car. And so I reached back out to Elon and brought Luis Sahoyas to SpaceX to introduce them and to sort of reveal to Elon this idea that we had to make this amazing mobile projection vehicle out of a Model S. By this time. This is 2012, so the Model S is already out. So I hadn't actually driven a Model S yet. So spring 2013, we went with the Racing Extinction crew, and I got to do my very first test drive of the Model S, and obviously fell in love with it. And we ordered our Model S for OPS for the Racing Extinction film, the car that would eventually become the mobile projection vehicle. And then shortly thereafter, I was asked to speak at an event called TesLive, which was kind of a conference gathering of all these Tesla owners and enthusiasts in Northern California. And I ordered my own Model S that morning, right before I gave my speech. And so I got my Model S delivered in September 2013. And I immediately began my initial dream of sort of outreaching to the race fans about electric cars. So I took my Model S and I would drive it to all of my races, and I would tell the race fans, what Tesla supercharger I was going to be at what time. So if they wanted to come and check out the car and talk to me and just learn about electric cars, they were able to do that. We had tons of race fans showing up for that. I was trying to explain to them that, electric road trips, long range electric road trips were possible. So like the first electric car trip that I did to go to the racetrack was all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina to Chicagoland Speedway.
That's a haul.
In Joliet, Illinois, but I couldn't go direct because back then there were not Tesla superchargers for a direct route. So I had to actually drive the Model S all the way from Charlotte to Washington, D.C., and then cut over to Chicago. So it ended up being this really long road trip. But the fans were so responsive, and they were really curious about learning more about the car. Some of the racetracks would even ask me to put the car on display, like out in front of the media center, so that race fans could get a close-up look at it. So that whole initial idea that I had back in 2008, 2009, when the Roadster came out, I was finally able to do it years later in 2014 when I was racing. And that was also the same year that my race team became the first in history to charge our pit box on pit road using solar power, 100% solar power. We had a solar battery pack with us. So it was kind of cool that eventually I got to do that initial idea, but it just took a few years to realize it. So, But eventually I got there.
Yeah, because you've got a P85 Plus, which I know you've spoken very highly of. I know you're as a professional race car driver, you love that car.
I do, yeah. So the P85 Plus, the Plus is the key part of of that. The Plus is a special suspension package that they offered back in 2013. It was a $6,500 add-on, so very, very few people ordered that suspension package. However, the P85 Plus that I drove when I did the test drive with Elon for the filming of the movie, that was a P85 Plus, and that suspension package was just out of this world. And I knew that I wanted to have that. So I would never trade my P85 Plus for anything else. It's rear wheel drive, and I think it's still the best suspension package that's ever come out of the Tesla factory.
So what I love about Tesla is, and this clearly happened with you, is you can come at it. Maybe you agree and you're on board with the mission of Tesla, but even if you don't necessarily care about that, one test drive is really all it takes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I can't tell you how many friends and family and really just acquaintances, people that I don't even know that well, that I've given test drives to in my Model S over the last, it's been over 6 years now that I've had my car, where those people then immediately decide to order their own. I took my sister on a test drive. She ordered one, then her husband kept taking the car, and it was making her upset. So then he ended up getting his own so that he would stop stealing her Model S. So there's actually 3 Model S's in my immediate family, as well as 2 Model 3s. So I wanted to ask you about your license plate on your car, because you have posted it publicly. I think it's hilarious. It's one of my favorite Tesla license plates ever. I'm curious if you want to share it here, and also the story behind it, because I'm curious how the heck you got it green lit by the DMV. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Actually, the one that I applied for first was FU oil. So it was the letter F and then a space and the letter U and then a space and oil. And that one got refused. I got a letter from the DMV saying something to the effect of, this could be viewed as offensive, and so we're not approving it. And so that same day that I got the rejection letter, I applied for F oil, which is spelled, I spelled it EFF and then space oil.
Right, like phonetically, basically.
Right. It's funny because most people get it, but some people don't get it and ask me what it means. It seems like it would be self-explanatory, but it's not always. So my husband was kind of laughing at me. He was like, they're not going to give you F oil. They just refused you for FU oil. Why are you even bothering applying for F oil? And I was kind of just like, well, you don't know. I might get like a cooler person, or I might get somebody with a sense of humor. You don't know who's reviewing your application. And so I sent it in that day, and 4 weeks later it came in the mail, and, haven't had any issues with it. I get a lot of laughs. I get a lot of people taking pictures of my license plate and giving me thumbs up. And, it's just kind of, for me, I've wanted to own an electric car for so many years at that point. This is 6 years ago, but for me, it was something that I had wanted for a really long time.
Yeah.
And there just really wasn't an electric car that existed that had all of the things that I felt like I needed as a race car driver, right? Like I wanted it to be beautiful and sexy and fast and, handle great. I wanted all the things that I have in my race car, but I wanted it in an electric car. And that really didn't, that really didn't exist until Tesla. So, as soon as I test drove the Model S, and I still think the Model S is the most beautiful of all the designs that have come out of Tesla. To me, it's just their masterpiece. I knew I had to have it, but I had dreamed of sort of for many years having not only an electric car, but also solar panels on the roof of my house, so that I could charge my electric car with the solar panels. And so when I bought the house, when we bought the house that I'm sitting in right now, we prepared and specifically chose this house because it had a nice south-facing roof for solar panels.
Yes.
Even though at the time, we didn't know when or if we would be able to afford solar panels down the road. So I got the Model S delivered in September 2013, and then in January of 2014, the solar panels went up on our roof. And, I was really, truly living sort of this dream that I had had for so many years. As an activist, I went to the BP oil spill. I've witnessed so many horrific things there, just wildlife covered in oil. And I knew that, it was part of my real mission in life to be able to someday not have to give any money to the oil companies.
Hey, you're driving on sunshine now.
Driving on sunshine, yes. And so, driving electric since 2013, but then driving on sunshine since January 2014. So that's that's the cleanest possible way that you can, get around with your own personal vehicle, right? Is to have not only an electric car, but also an electric car that is charged with renewable energy. And so I realize it's an absolute privilege to get to be an early adopter and have been able to experience this for so many years. But I honestly feel like, being an early adopter, we sort of helped by buying the cars back then when it was, a little bit pricier and, Tesla wasn't doing as well back then. We really contributed, the early adopters, to helping Tesla survive and succeed to the point where they could get to now, where now they can, produce the $35,000 Model 3. And I think that's, it's incredible. And I'm so happy that I was able to, be lucky enough to be able to afford to be one of those early adopters. But it was a stretch for us. We were saving up for it, and we're so happy with the car. And I think, someday the day will come when maybe I'll have to swap the battery. But that's what I'll do. And I'll keep driving my P85 Plus forever. I've only owned 3 cars in my life, and that's my third one and my final one.
Yeah. You've probably got at least a few 100,000 more miles on that battery before you even have to consider that. So you're in real good shape with a Tesla. That's the beauty part. So before, I want to talk more about your background too, but while we're talking Tesla specifically, you touched on the racing Extinction Car that you ordered for the film, which I do want to talk about the film as well, because I watched it recently, and it's a very powerful, moving film. But the car that you'll see in the film that you've mentioned a couple times, this Model S that's heavily modified. So you could sort of talk about, you see it in the film, but the projection system that's in it, what it's capable of, and then you got to talk about the paint job on this thing too, because it's pretty darn amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing car. So we actually nicknamed the car 006 because she's a lot like a James Bond car. She's, there's only one of her in the world. She's got all kinds of these amazing gadgets and things that she can do that no other car can. But the film itself was about the 6th mass extinction of species. So rather than calling her 007, we called her 006. So that's kind of her nickname. And she's very special. She has a 15,000 lumen projection system that comes out of the back of the car. And with that means that I can project imagery, from 1,000 feet away onto buildings or mountains or really anywhere that I want. And I was projecting imagery around endangered species, as well as, we did some projections in the film that you'll see when you watch it that we didn't necessarily have permission for, on like oil refineries and things like that. And that was actually one of the reasons for the paint job, which I don't know that was explained very well in the film. But what the paint job allowed me to do, so she is the first car in the world with what we call electroluminescent paint. And what that means is that the paint itself can actually carry an electrical charge. So I can, with the flip of a switch inside of the car, send an electrical current to the paint and change the color of the paint.
I mean, that's some James Bond stuff right there.
That is really James Bond stuff right there. Yeah. So when I send the electrical current, the paint actually, normally when it's off, it just looks like a plain gray Tesla. But then when I send the electrical current, it will light the car up. It will kind of glow a bright blue, almost like, we were honoring the Oceanic Preservation Society, our nonprofit that makes these films. We focus on trying to inspire people to want to save the ocean. So we were a bit inspired and thinking of bioluminescent creatures that live in the ocean. So that's kind of what she looks like. And she's really, truly amazing. And those aren't the only two modifications she has. I also had the ability to make my license plate disappear, as well as a high definition FLIR camera that is installed in the front of the car. And I can hit a button and the FLIR will come out of the front of the car, and the FLIR has a special color filter on it that actually makes carbon dioxide and methane visible to the human eye. So I was able to, for example, there's a shot you'll see in the film where I'm in New York City. I'm filming with the FLIR camera on the front of the car, and I'm filming gasoline cars going by and stopping at the stoplight. And at the same time, I'm live projecting those cars onto the side of like a 10-story building. Right. So the people sitting at the stoplight are seeing themselves up on, covering sort of the wall of this building, and they're actually seeing visually the exhaust and the pollution that's coming out of the back of their car. So I think that's one of the issues that is difficult with, explaining pollution and climate change and greenhouse gases, is that humans are very visual creatures and we can't see carbon dioxide, we can't see methane. So it presents a problem in that I think a lot of people, because they can't see it, it's like out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right, it makes sense.
And so that's an issue, and that's one of the things that we address in the movie is we're trying to visually show people, look, this is what is all around you. It's not just, coming out of cars. We're showing airplanes and semis and ships, and you're seeing all of this pollution that it's funny, even though, I'm not driving around 006 anymore, I can still see it in my eyes. I looked so many times at this FLIR video footage that you'll see in the film that sometimes when I look at traffic, I'll see in my head the visualization of all the carbon that's coming out of every single one of those exhaust pipes. It's kind of devastating when you see it, because you realize, the air looks clean, it looks clear. But in fact, you are surrounded by greenhouse gases that you're inhaling.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty powerful part of the film. Now, I don't have FLIR cameras on my Tesla, but I wonder, have you, as someone who's been driving electric for a lot longer than I have found in my own life that I've become more sensitive to the smells of carbon dioxide. Like if, particularly here as it's gotten into the chillier part of the year, if a car parked on the street has just turned itself on and then driven away, even if it's been a couple minutes, I walk by with the dog on the dog walk, and it really hits my nose. I don't know if you've found that too, being away from gasoline cars for a while now.
Absolutely. I have found that I'm much more sensitive to it. You notice it a lot more because you're not used to smelling it. I also had carbon monoxide poisoning at one of my races in 2015. I was racing at Daytona, and there was a wreck, and I, like all drivers, when you're in a wreck, you're taken to the infield care center to get all of your vitals checked. And whether you're feeling fine or not, it doesn't matter. They want to check all of your vitals. And when they checked my vitals, my carbon monoxide was really, really high. I ended up being stuck in the infield care center, I think, for like 4 or 5 hours, breathing oxygen to try and get my levels down to the point where they would actually release me. And that's the scary thing is, you were bringing it up as something that you smell, but carbon monoxide is actually that I was being poisoned by in the race car. It's odorless. So I had no idea. I mean, obviously I was on a racetrack at Daytona with, 40 other race cars racing around me, but somehow there must have been, in order for me to have the levels as high as they were, there must have been some sort of a leak that my own car's exhaust was somehow getting into my cabin. Wow. And so it was really, that was sort of a wake up call, because the doctor at Daytona was like, carbon monoxide builds up over time. So, you very well, if you had not had an accident and you had finished the race and you had been breathing in this carbon monoxide the whole race and finished it and not known that there was anything wrong because you never came to the infield care center to get checked out because you never had the wreck. Right. I mean, you literally could have gone to sleep tonight and just not woken up in the morning. Wow. Because you wouldn't have known that there was anything wrong with you, because the effect is that you just sort of fall asleep. And there's no like real signs that there was something wrong. It was that I got checked out. My family actually later said when I had the wreck, normally I'm very animated. Like if there's a wreck on the track, I'm obviously emotional and upset about it. And they said that they knew something was wrong with me because my races aired on Fox Sports, and I had an in-car camera from Fox Sports inside of my race car. So when the wreck happened, it flashed to my in-car camera and they could see me. And instead of being animated and upset and, throwing my gloves and mad like I normally am, they said I was totally calm and I wasn't upset, and I was just talking to the ambulance guy, the medic, the medic that had arrived at my car. And my family and my husband were all saying, like, we felt like something was wrong because it was so strange the way that you reacted to the wreck. It was not like you. Normally, you're having a good race and something happens and you get taken out, you would be upset, but you didn't seem to be upset at all. You were just calm and just sitting there quietly. And we all thought that something was wrong with you. And so, it ended up being carbon monoxide poisoning. I not only do you get more sensitive to the smell, but also just realizing that this is poison. I mean, you can die from carbon monoxide and you don't even know that you're inhaling it. So it's really scary to think that that's all around us.
Now, I know, somebody listening to this that doesn't know, you might think, well, boy, activism and race car driving seem to be almost at odds with each other. You're driving electric, but then you're going out on the weekends and throughout your career, and you'd be running these 300, 400, 500 lap races. So I know you did your best to offset your carbon footprint from every race, correct? You had sort of a group, an organization that you worked with on that.
Yeah. So so just for a little bit of background, my degree, before I started racing, I earned a degree in biology, specializing in ecology, behavior, and evolution from the University of California in San Diego. So that came before my racing life. Yeah. Once I started racing in 2007, which is when I was actually in open wheel cars, I was in what was called at the time the Indy Pro Series. It's a level below the IndyCar Series. It's their development league. And I made the commitment to adopt and protect an acre of rainforest for every race that I run. So I actually, through my most recent adoption was through the Rainforest Trust. And I adopted, so even though I've only I think I ran a total of 61 professional races in my career, I have adopted over 1,500 acres of rainforest to be protected in order to offset that carbon footprint. And then also, of course, my cars, for anybody who watched any of my races will know that my cars were all carrying messages about renewable energy, documentary films. I've carried both The Cove and Blackfish, which is another documentary film that aired on CNN. That's about orca captivity. The Cove is about dolphin captivity and the connection between the largest slaughter of dolphins in the world and the dolphin captivity industry. I've run What the Health on my car, which is another documentary that's actually about the vegan food and plant-based diet. I ran a vegan car for 2 years, that the Vegan Strong and the Vegan Powered car, where we gave away free vegan food to the race fans. And so actually last year through that program, I ran 8 races, and at 5 of those races, I had a big green tent that we called the Vegan Strong tent, and I gave away the Vegan Impossible Burger, which is a completely plant-based burger, and we gave away over 30,000 of those burgers at just 5 race weekends. So it was very, very popular. We couldn't make the burgers fast enough. So all the cars kind of had activism tied to them. None of them were like trying to sell people products. They were promoting, solar power or a future with 100% renewable energy. There was a group I worked with that was actually a group of veterans that were fighting for clean energy on Capitol Hill called Operation Free. I had one car that was I had all different renewable energy companies and an LED lighting company all on the car, pitching in to get it out there at Daytona. So the cars in and of themselves were carrying a message of activism on them rather than like trying to sell you like soda.
Right. So if people that aren't race car drivers, because most everybody listening to this podcast is either driving a Tesla now or has plans to at some point in the future. But I know there are a lot of people out there now that kind of think about, well, what about I fly a lot for my business? Is there a way that people can do the rainforest adoption to sort of try and offset things when they fly? Do you have any kind of quick tips for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. There are so many worthy nonprofit organizations out there in the world. And I'm on the board of 3 of them, one being Oceanic Preservation Society that makes the documentaries. But there are plenty of, not just rainforest, but I would encourage people to also consider the ocean. Very few of charity dollars that are earmarked for environmental issues are directed towards the ocean. The vast majority of them are directed towards land issues, which is great. And certainly, the Amazon is, they like to call the Amazon the lungs of the earth. However, that's actually not completely accurate. So anywhere between 50 and 70% of all the oxygen on Earth is actually coming from our oceans, from phytoplankton. And ever since the Industrial Revolution, since we started burning fossil fuels and putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the ocean has been acting as a carbon sink. And so it's absorbing a lot of that carbon that's going into the atmosphere is actually being absorbed by our oceans. And that's making our oceans more acidic. And it's causing all kinds of problems with shelled creatures because they cannot create their shells because the pH of the ocean is changing to the point where it's becoming too acidic for them to be actually able to form those shells. And the phytoplankton blooms have also been dropping every single year. So that should be of concern to us. I mean, when you're breathing right now, like take 2 breaths, one of those 2 breaths came from that oxygen came from the oceans. So really it's, the Amazon, yes, as far as like land-based lungs of the earth, yes. But the ocean is our true lungs of the earth, and we have to be taking care of it. There's a fantastic film that was not made by Oceanic Preservation Society that I work with, but was made by a friend, Jeff Orlowski. It's called Chasing Coral, and it is about the loss of our coral reefs. And as a scuba diver, that's a really devastating thing to see. So I definitely encourage people to look into whether you're doing your offset with Rainforest or whether you're doing it with maybe supporting renewable energy projects like some solar projects or wind power, to also look at contributing to ocean organizations that are focusing on saving our oceans, because that is really important to the health of our overall planet. Absolutely. And unfortunately, it tends to be the one that is neglected the most. And I think, again, it's that out of sight, out of mind. Like I said earlier, we can't see carbon dioxide and methane going into the atmosphere. So it's like we don't realize that it's happening. And I think a lot of the planet doesn't live near the ocean. So we're not seeing these coral reefs dying. We're not seeing it dying before our eyes, like the people that live there. But the ocean really needs our help too. So
I'm not done with you yet. I want to get a little bit more into your racing and car background, but seems like a good point to give the film a plug. So Racing Extinction, as I watched it recently. I thought I got emotional in a few different parts. It goes into a lot more detail about the oceanic and just general earth and animal issues that you're speaking about. It's really a really great film that's worth a watch. And it's available just about anywhere you can rent or buy films other than Netflix. It's sadly not on Netflix, but I think I watched it through. I can't remember if I rented it on Amazon or YouTube, but it's pretty much everywhere. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, YouTube, Google, iTunes. It's pretty easy to find. It's just called Racing Extinction. It came out in 2015, and I worked on it, since February 2012, I guess, was when that race was where I ran the Cove car. And they told me that they had a job for me. And then actually at the end of Racing Extinction, on our last day of filming, you'll see some really large projection events that we're doing in New York City. And when Louis said cut on the final take, he then asked me to join the board of Oceanic Preservation Society. So I've been now serving on their board since 2015, and they do incredible work. And Racing Extinction, it's probably one of the, greatest honors, I think, of my life, that I got to be a part of that film, to be a small part of it. I'm mainly, you're going to see me behind the wheel of the Tesla. And that was a big, chunk of my life. It's funny, when you see the film, you'll see, some projection events in New York City, and it's not much of the film, but that was many weeks of my life. Yeah,
you're running from the police in this movie, in this documentary. You see Elon Musk is in the movie. You see the of course, 006 car, which is just a phenomenal thing to see for any Tesla fan. That's in the movie. You see the Tesla factory as it was in 2012, which is neat to see. So Tesla fans definitely have plenty of good reasons to watch Racing Extinction. Hey, real quick, I remembered I was going to ask you, where is 006 now? Where is it hiding?
So 006 is in California. She is actually Elon's car now. And she's been improved quite a bit from when I turned her over to Elon. She's even better now than she was when she was in the film, but she can still do all the fun, cool things that you see her do in the film. And she was actually at the Model 3 reveal. So if there was anybody...
Yes, I was there.
Oh, do you remember her? Okay, so she was there in the audience, and then she was projecting... Yeah, she was in the middle of the crowd, and then she was kind of projecting onto the the
wall of the
back of
factory.
the stage. Yeah. So she's still around, and I have taken her out a couple of times. I took her out. There was a vote happening around solar power and net metering, not just in California, but also in Las Vegas, where I took her out and was projecting some imagery around solar power and the importance for us to continue to move towards solar power, because some of the votes that were going on were taking away some of the net metering and some of the rights that customers have to, if you invest all this money putting solar on your roof, and your electric company is then taking that power and selling it to your neighbors, like, you should be compensated for that, right? Mm-hmm. But there were a lot of battles going on with utility companies across the U.S., and I actually ran 2 race cars that were highlighting this issue. That was my Energy Freedom car, where I was trying to educate people about these things that are happening in different states where the utility companies are sort of fighting to take that ability away from homeowners. And, obviously, if you have a roof and you want to put up solar panels, you should be allowed to do so. And if you're pumping that energy into the grid, you should be compensated for that, because you've essentially become your own little power source there mm-hmm. for the electric company. So there's a lot of these little battles. So I did take her out in California and in Vegas to sort of raise awareness around these solar battles that were happening. So she's not, she hasn't been out in a while because she's been being improved. But hopefully you haven't seen the last of her. I hope that we will still get to take her out. And, I really look at 006 as kind of being her own activist. We never put her together with, the idea that she was one day just going to sit in a garage and collect dust. We always want her to be able to be used to raise awareness about not just endangered species, but also all of these important issues, these things that really humanity has to change about the way that we're living on this planet, whether it's, moving to renewable energy or changing the way that we eat, the way that we're living, to live in a way that doesn't destroy the world around us. And so I really consider 006 as much more than a car. She is an activist in her own right. And I was lucky that I got to drive her.
Well, I for one, hey, Elon, if you're listening to this, I think Elon should start a little public Tesla museum where people can come and see sort of the history of electric vehicles and sustainable energy. And I think Roadster 1 should be in there, which I know, Elon has, and he broke it out. He brought it to the Model Y event. I think the prototype Model S should be there. I think 006 should be in there. I think the prototype Model 3 should be in there. Could be a really cool thing. So Elon,
that's a good idea.
Yes, Elon, I think you could do a lot of public good and education with a Tesla museum that highlights the mission of the company. Anyway, back to you here, Leilani. Before I let you go, I am curious. You mentioned, and you had told me off air about your background, about your biology degree from San Diego State, and how
UC San Diego.
Thank you for that. So I'm curious how you get from there to into racing. So did you like cars ever since you were a little kid? What's sort of how did you end up as an activist race car driver? I'm very curious to the sort of, I guess, Cliff's Notes version of that story.
Right. I know. Yeah, it's not a typical journey. I started a bucket list in high school. I always have felt that.
Dark, don't you think? You're a young person.
No, well, I mean, but I'm not so young anymore, but I was young when I started it. But I don't know why I have always had this. I've always felt that we just don't know how much time we're going to have here. And so when I started the bucket list, I remember my friends in high school having the same reaction as you. They were like, that is so morbid. Bucket lists are for old people. Why do you have bucket lists? But I mean, I think a lot of the things on my bucket list are things that I can't do when I'm really old.
Right.
So it's not something that I want to wait and, I'm going to do my bucket list when I'm 70. You know, I mean, some of the things are, hang gliding and jumping off bridges, doing bungee jumping, things like that I don't think I'd be able to do. Maybe I could, but I don't want to press it.
Right.
A lot of them are places I want to travel. A lot of them are places I want to scuba dive. But one of those things on my bucket list was to drive a race car. And that was partially because I kept getting in trouble for speeding because I've always loved speed. I'm afraid of heights, but I have always felt really comfortable going fast. And I got in trouble. I got a lot of speeding tickets, and I felt like I want to feel what it feels like to drive a car, to push it to its limit, and to not have to worry about getting in trouble.
Right.
And so it was just a thing on my bucket list. I planned to do it and never do it again. Really, I was just going to check it off the list, and that was it. But then I ended up being the fastest car in the track. There were like 40 drivers there that day,
this
and I was the only woman. Yeah, this is at a racing school, and I was the only woman there. And I was the fastest car in the track, and I was actually a second quicker than the instructor.
Nice.
And so, anyways, there was a local race team owner, like a regional NASCAR team owner that came over to me and said, what are you doing here? Who are you with? And I explained that I was by myself, that I had saved up my own money to come to the track. And he thought that was very unusual. He kind of said, usually when women are here at the track, they've been dragged by like their husbands or their boyfriends. They don't even really want to be here. It's very unusual, one, that you came here on your own, but two, you were also super, super fast. And, you should really consider doing this, like becoming a race car driver. And I was
what a cool thing for somebody to say to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I was kind of immediately like, well, I don't have the kind of funds it takes to drive race cars on the weekend. Like it's not a cheap sport. And he just kind of pointed out, look, there's very few women in our sport. You've shown that you've got some natural talent. You enjoy this, and you're unique because you're a woman, and there are so few women in this sport. So I think that you should, you might be able to find a sponsor to help you get started. So I started the following week I went to a sports marketing company and explained, like, look, I don't have racing experience, but, I'm being told I am quick and that I've shown some promise, and I want to get out on the track and just run like short track Saturday night, racing. And this is in Southern California. And it took me 9 months to find my first sponsor. And I ran my first race in August of 2001 at Cajon Speedway in San Diego, which has since been torn down. It's not there anymore. And I fought for the lead in my first race, and I fell in love, and I was like, I really want to do this. And it was kind of funny. There was a moment where, when they're doing the gentlemen start your engines, which is what they say to start the races. And the guy had to change, he had to change the starting words. He had to say, lady and gentlemen, start your engines. And I remember just like hearing him say that and knowing that I was making them change the words that started the race, cool. Like gave me goosebumps. And I felt like I had won just by being on the starting grid, like just by making them change the words. Like I was showing that like women could be out there trading paint with the guys.
Absolutely.
And then I fought for the lead, and I earned some respect, I think. And I was encouraged then by the people that I had raced against. And so then shortly thereafter, the following year, I moved to North Carolina, and I raced for 18 years. I retired after Daytona in February. I ran my last race there. And, I had a great time. I got to drive all kinds of amazing cars and raise awareness for a lot of these issues that I care about. But now I'm really focused on making documentary films with the Oceanic Preservation Society, and I'm sort of starting over, I guess, a new career.
New challenge.
I've turned over a new leaf, and it's been an amazing journey, but I'm excited for what's still to come.
Well, I got to ask you before I let you go, as you know, Tesla, I think one of the first things that's associated with Tesla when you just say that name to anyone, that car company name, people think, okay, electric, but then probably the second thing they think of is, oh, those things are fast. So, we Tesla owners, we tend to like speed. We tend to enjoy speed. I have to ask you, what is it like physically and sort of emotionally to drive, to bring a car to 200 miles per hour?
It's amazing. It's the focus that you feel. You really feel like the whole rest of the world disappears. I actually remember when I first started racing and I first started to experience this slow motion where I would be out on the track and you're going really fast, but I was seeing it in slow motion. And I've heard other athletes actually talk about this. I've heard baseball players talk about how when they call it the zone, when they're in the zone that they can actually see. I've heard people say that baseball players say that they can see the threads.
The seams on the ball.
Yeah,
absolutely.
On the ball, like spinning towards them. Because it's almost like everything stops and you're seeing it all in slow motion. And that's how I'm experiencing it when I'm out on the track. And everything fades away. And race day is always very hectic, right? There's, the media is there. It's live on television. Your sponsors are there. Oftentimes my family is with me. And you have to do autograph signings. There are all these things that are pulling you in 50 different directions all at once. But then you climb into the car and the net goes up and my helmet comes on and it's like all of that is gone. The crowd is gone. The sponsors are gone. The cameras are gone. You feel completely so immersed in this one thing because you can't make a mistake. You're going 200 miles an hour, like inches next to other cars. You have to be completely focused. And there's this amazing feeling that I get when all of the rest of the world is gone. And I'm just 100% focused on this one thing. And it's an incredible feeling. And there's not too many moments in life where I feel that, where I feel like all of the distractions that are around us are gone. And I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not feeling hungry. All of your other needs kind of fall away. And you're just 100% living in the moment. And you're just concentrating on hitting your line. And then it's funny when I turn on the television and then I watch the race later and I see how fast we're going. I'm like, wow, I'm really hauling the mail there.
Yeah.
I'm going 200 miles an hour, but it doesn't feel like that. Actually, when I'm in the car, it feels really slow. I'm not seeing it in real time. I'm seeing it in halftime or a quarter time. It feels very slow. So it's almost a strange thing when I see it on television and it's like we look like we're going so fast. And I know that's how fast we're really going, but that's not at all how it feels to me in reality when I'm doing it.
Well, that's a superpower is what that is. You're describing superpowers. That sounds awesome. Leilani Münter, thank you so much. Your racing career may have come to a close, but your documentary filmmaking and activism career is just getting started. The film to go watch, if you're listening to this and you enjoyed hearing from Leilani, is Racing Extinction. You can rent or purchase it on most of the major video on demand services other than mean old Netflix, who needs to get off their hinds and get the rights to get this film on Netflix as well. But rent it, watch it somewhere. Leilani, thank you so very much. I've so enjoyed getting to know you this past year in the Tesla community, and love what you do for the Tesla community and beyond that. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Ryan. And if I could just add one more thing, if there's any teachers listening, you can go to racingextinction.com, and the film aired on the Discovery Channel, and Discovery Education has actually built out lesson plans that are free for any teacher to download. So doesn't matter what grade you teach, there's lesson plans for all different ages. But if you just go to racingextinction.com and then you click on the education tab, any teacher can download these free lesson plans as a free resource that Discovery Channel built when the film came out. And so it's a great way to educate your students, not just about the human impact on our planet and all the animals that we share it with, but I think it will really inspire your students as well. So I hope if there's any teachers listening, they'll check it out.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Leilani. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
As promised, it is now time for the Ride the Lightning hotline. Your calls here, just an abbreviated version of this. I'm going to do a few calls, clear a few. There's plenty piled up, lots of great stuff. Love hearing from everybody. Again, if you want to call in, I invite you, I welcome you to do so. You can call in one of two easy ways. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software and then email that file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can call and leave a message toll-free on the Ride the Lightning hotline. That number is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. Either way, please try to keep your call to 90 seconds or less, a minute and a half, so that I can get through as many calls each week as possible. And by the way, if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. First up this week is our old friend Keith, the Tesla Hillbilly.
Good morning, Ryan. This is Keith, Tesla Hillbilly, actually calling from vacationing and traveling throughout the state of Phoenix, or rather the state of Arizona, and I was thinking of you. Understand you have relatives here, and excuse me. Also, understand there's a little NBA playoffs going on there, and the Phoenix are ahead 2-1, so hopefully they can make it, as I have no skin in the game there, and know you are pretty vested in that. Anyway, I digress, Ryan. I do have a question here related to Tesla, and that is in regards to the Cybertruck. Currently, the portable charging cords that we get with our vehicles are able to handle up to 32 amps when charging your vehicle there. And depending on the vehicle, that might get you anywhere between low to high 20s per hour when you're charging. My question was on the truck there, when somebody like myself might be out hiking at different RV areas, or they might have RV hookup areas in state parks, or at a work site, or even at my father's that has capability or plug-ins for up to sending 60 amps across there, like a 1460 amp there. Is it possible that Tesla might include or have the option of having a cord that actually allow 48 or so amps to go across and then allow you to charge faster on that vehicle with a bigger battery pack and everything? Anyway, as always, Ryan, thank you for taking the call and the information that you give out to the community. Here's to you and your family, and of course, Davey, having a good and rest of your day. Thank you.
Well, Keith, sadly, the Phoenix Suns obviously did not end up closing out that series with a victory. But anyway, let's talk Tesla a little bit. It's great to hear from you. I have a little bit of good news for you, at least. The current mobile connector will do up to 30 miles per hour of charge on the 3 and the Y. I know you said high 20s, but it's a tad better than that. But I hear you, though, and you bring up a good point. The Cybertruck is going to have a larger battery pack, particularly that tri-motor 500-mile range version. And charging that from almost zero on the existing mobile connector would take, just from my quick math, around 16 to 17 hours, which is really not good. That's pretty darn slow for a reasonable 50 amp, 30 amp wall outlet there. So it's not just a 110 trickle charge there. That's a long time for a significant plug. But anyway, the point is, I hope Tesla does step up their offering there, ideally with the connector that's included with the truck, but at the very least, as you suggested, offering, say, a Lightning version that could take more juice. Hopefully, Tesla also includes higher amp onboard chargers in the Cybertruck as well. The original Model S had an optional 80 amp onboard charger, which in hindsight was probably overkill for what was a 265 mile range car. Now, the onboard chargers that are in the cars are 48 amps. So just as a point of comparison there. So we'll see what they do with the Cybertruck. Thank you, as always, for your call, Keith. Victor from New Zealand is up next with a little PSA.
Hey Ryan, I see you get updates from countries outside of the US, so here's a bit for New Zealand. Previously, someone sent in an update that there is a rebate ongoing in New Zealand for about $8,500 for the base Model 3, which is the rear-wheel drive Standard Range Plus. And now, last week, Tesla NZ dropped their Model 3 price by $3,000 for all the variants, but only the Model 3 and not the S or the X. So this works out to be a discount of about $11,500 just in July. What a steal. So this brings the base price of the Model 3 to a near retail price of the US. Now NZ does not have the Y yet, but I hope sooner rather than later as the Model 3 comes out from Giga Shanghai. Tesla is on the pricey side here, so with this discount I hope to see more Teslas on the road for an even greener NZ. Cheers and keep up the great work there.
Victor, thank you very much for that update. It is really exciting to see there be near price parity with the United States for New Zealand here. And really, that's always nice to see in any other territory as well. It obviously varies greatly from territory to territory. But as you said, that will only encourage more Tesla purchases in other countries, and you love to see it. Thank you again for that. And one more caller for this week. Here's GK from Lake Jackson, Texas.
Hello, Ryan. This is GK from Lake Jackson, Texas. I got a question about the FSD subscription. I was wondering if I would be able to purchase it this month, and then cancel it, and then repurchase it again in 2 months. And you keep doing that only when I needed to use it, make it a long trip or something. So I wonder if you can use your influence with Elon, your buddy, to check into that. And one other thing, my son has a 2016 Honda Civic and has a camera on the mirror. So when he turns to make a right turn or a lane change, the camera shows on his screen what's in his blind spot. I wonder if that could be an option on the Tesla as a software update. Just checking in, seeing how you're doing. I love the show. And say hi to Daisy the Boxer for me, please. Bye.
GK, thank you for your call. Yes, you can indeed go month to month on that full self-driving subscription. That's one nice part about it. There's no year-long commitment or anything else that's required. So just use it for the months that you want, and you're all set. Now, as for the cameras that turn on when you put the blinker on, like you noted in Hondas, I also, not too long ago actually, drove a Honda that had that, and I agree, it's really cool, and it would certainly be wonderful to use the Tesla's built-in repeater cameras for that, and lots of people have had the same thought. It's been tweeted at Elon, and Elon has acknowledged it as something that is in the works, so hopefully we will see that feature brought to the cars sooner rather than later, although it is already one that it's been a little while, but I do trust that it's still in the works. Take care, GK. Thank you very much for your call. And again, I welcome anybody and everybody to dial in to the Ride the Lightning hotline. Be a part of the podcast. I love hearing from you. If you want to participate, I gave you the call-in information at the top of this segment. All right, one more super quick break. I'll be back with your pro tip of the week and a wrap-up right after this. Well, as I said at the top, as you hear this, I will have hopefully just had a safe and enjoyable time away with my family, and I hope all of you guys out there are having a safe and enjoyable summer as well. Here's a pro tip of the week. It comes from John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey. Bit of a heavy topic here, but it's one that's worth hearing just in case. John, go ahead.
Hi Ryan, this is John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey. Wanted to call and share a few tips about what to do if your Tesla is in an accident. So first thing you're going to want to do is touch the dash cam button or honk the horn if you have that feature enabled to record the incident. Next, it's worth noting that Tesla roadside service does not cover the vehicle should it be in a collision. So you may want to confirm that you have additional coverage through your insurance company. The Model Y and Model 3 have tow hooks in the front trunk, which can be accessed via the front bumper. There's a small disc that can be removed and you can put that in place. In order to place the vehicle into tow mode, you're going to want to go onto the touchscreen under the vehicle menu, service, towing mode. In order to do so, you're going to need your key in place to put this into tow mode. This will put the car into neutral even if the car is otherwise unable to be driven. In our case, we discovered after towing the vehicle that the 12-volt battery had been damaged from the accident, and we were unable to otherwise access it. In order to reinitialize the car and give it power back, you can there's 2 wires in the front bumper and that little circle that was removed for the tow hook. Hook up a 12-volt battery charger, and it will pop the frunk. At that time, you can remove the plastic guard underneath the hood up near the wipers and access the terminals for charging the battery. Hope this helps all your listeners in times of need, and hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experience here, John. I hope first and foremost that you and your family are okay, and that secondarily, hopefully your car will be back in your garage soon. And hey, while I'm handing out hopes here, let's hope that nobody who hears this will ever need these tips. But as I said, introducing this, it's good to hear them just in case. So all the best to you, John. If anybody else out there has a pro tip of the week that they'd like to share with their fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, please call in with it. Same way that you call in with the regular Ride the Lightning hotline. Before I go this week, I, of course, want to mention some friends of the podcast. Let me start with Immaculate Reflections, wonderful detailing talent. That is Jeff. That is probably the second thing on his, well, definitely great person, number 1, great husband, great dad. Third, or fourth, I guess that would be his great detailer. He's very good at what he does. I can't recommend him enough. If you are in the San Francisco area, Bay Area, the greater Bay Area, I should say, and you're going to be here with your car, stop by an Immaculate Reflections. You got to book in first, just FYI. I know you can't really drop in. He books up a bit in advance, but it's worth it because his services are wonderful, whether you're doing paint correction, paint protection film, or ceramic coating, or some combination thereof. I highly recommend it. Your car will look amazing and be easily kept amazing. That's what I've learned about detailing. After having really learned a lot and spent a lot of time with Jeff and had a lot done on my car with Jeff, is detailing, yes, it's about beautifying the car, having it look as good as it can, but the real, I think, secret sauce, or at least the thing that you actually get out of it is, in the long term, is it's really easy to keep your car looking awesome. It's not just like a one-time, well, I waxed it and now it looks great till the next time it rains. No. When a professional detailer gets done with your car, it becomes very easy to keep it looking great. Because if you've got the ceramic coating on there, if you've got the paint protection film, if you've got paint correction, it just becomes very easy to keep your car looking factory, awesome, and new. Anyway, if you do visit Immaculate Reflections and have one or more of Jeff's services performed on your car, mention that when you're booking, mention that you're a listener of this podcast, and there's a little discount in it for you. So go to irdetailing.com to learn more or to get in contact with Jeff. And then how about abstractocean.com? So many aftermarket Tesla accessories from center console wraps to screen protectors to rear footwell lighting kits, all kinds of stuff. You got to just take a look It only takes a minute. abstractocean.com. Type that in, press enter, and you're done. You will suddenly have in front of you a whole virtual warehouse full of really excellent Tesla aftermarket accessories. Pile everything that you want into your cart. Then, when you're ready to go, use the coupon code RTLPodcast at checkout to get 15% off of your first order. That's RTL Podcast, all one word, no spaces, for that listener discount. Thank you, Abstract Ocean. PureTesla.com/RTL. That's your one-stop shop for all dash cam and Sentry mode needs. I use this in my car. The $49 kit will get you a 128 gig micro SD-based USB solution that just plugs in, plays, works. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. It's a long-term solution. Grab one. PureTesla.com/RTL. And then Jada. They've got a whole bunch of cool stuff. I'm a big proponent of the wireless charging pad, but hey, the USB hub console is pretty sweet. And then I just got the Jada tray, which splits your center console in half horizontally. And on that top bit, there's nice just trays to organize things, including wireless charging for your Apple AirPods or Pixel Buds, as well as your smartwatch. You can stick that on there, magnetize that on there, and charge it up as well. So really useful products over at Jada. To get yours, well, first, make sure you get the discount. Use the coupon code RTL. And then the place to go to shop and use that coupon code is getjada.com/REF/8. And Jada is spelled JEDA. Finally this week, the Patreon. That is the primary way through which you can voluntarily choose to support my efforts here on this podcast. And I humbly ask that maybe you consider it at some point. Maybe it's today, maybe it's next week, maybe it's next month. But hey, maybe at some point you go, you know what? I really like what Ryan's doing. He does it every single week. Hopefully you think he does a great job. And maybe you want to support me. It is very much appreciated if you are willing and able to do so. To learn more, go to my Patreon page found at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. The support tiers start at just $5 a month, or you could do the yearly option, just pay once for a year's worth of support, and you'll get a 5% discount for doing so, and you'll still get whatever the perk is. So that base sport tier perk is early access to each week's episode. Then you go to the next one, and it's the monthly bonus mini episode and the early access, and it just keeps going and keeps stacking. So check it out, patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. I would be very, very grateful if you would. And I think that's just about it. I'm on the social medias, specifically Twitter and Instagram. Same handle on both. It's DMC_Ryan. You can always email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. That's the podcast email. And that'll about wrap it up, other than saying hello to the Plaid, Maximum Plaid, and Roadster and Space Tier Patreon supporters. Now, if you're a new supporter at one of these levels and I didn't mention your name, I apologize. It's because I'm recording this again before my trip. So I had to record it a bit ago, and I will get your mention in starting on next week if you are so kind as to have joined either the Plaid, Maximum Plaid, or Roadster and Space tiers. Let me start with the Plaid crew. Thank you to George Cassiopo, David Brander, Alexi Heft, Logan Willis, Jason Chalukas, Tim Hyde, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, David Nondahl, Jerry and Mary Smith, Joel Sapp, Dory and Steve Guberman, Jeremy, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, John Cody, Charlie Gillespie, David Perella, Sunil Joseph, Dennis Peak, Stig Mickey Jensen, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Michael Regal, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Noel and Lucy Murphy, the Tesla Owners East Bay Club, Paul Casarino, Ryan Natchett, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, David J. Howes, Travis Krenzel, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Jonathan Zalesny, Joshua Walker, and Rick Dean. And the Maximum Plaid crew, thanks so much, Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, John Schmidt, Stan Roth, Howard Anthony Smith, Charles Galpin, Ryan from Las Vegas, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Ulrich Lassa, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Hay Watley, Eric Brown, Mark Eversole, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams, MT, Will Stedman, Tyler Smith, Mait Suaru, Derek Nesselrote, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Alex Brem, and Matt Kalin. And finally, an extra big thanks to the Roadster in Space tier backers, Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, my friend on Twitter at Rodam, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Scooter Ward, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, and Crafty Geek. Thanks to all of you for very generously and very continuously supporting my efforts here on Ride the Lightning via Patreon. That will about wrap it up for me. Back to the regular format, again, quote-unquote live episode next week with all the current news. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Leilani. I have really had a great time getting to know her over the last few years at various events and things. Her story is just fascinating and amazing to me, and I hope you got a little some of that based on the interview on this episode. So, for Daisy the Boxer and Leilani Münter, I'm Ryan McCaffrey. This was Ride the Lightning episode 314, and I'll see you next week.
I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.